Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank you for bringing forward this budget today. And just a few points I'd like to make. Many of them have already been mentioned. First, 33 trillion in debt. We just surpassed that. That's almost 100,000 in borrowings per American. 33 trillion, 100,000 per American. And the fiscal trajectory is showing that will only increase. And I like to think of it in terms of our total debt compared to our total economic output, or debt to GDP. And what I'm talking about is debt held by the public. We're at about 100%. I have a chart that shows the trajectory just for the next 10 years, which is the black line. And if you look at over the next 30 years, that chart would go like this. Debt to GDP is projected to almost double by 2053. We know that will lead to higher interest rates. It'll lead to slower economic growth, reduced economic stability, and it'll squeeze out government services. Not to mention a sovereign debt crisis, which will occur based on history at some point. We don't know when. This budget is a step in the right direction, and that's what this graph shows. Instead of increasing debt to GDP over the next 10 years, the orange line is the president's budget, but then the green line is the impact of this budget in debt to GDP just over the next 10 years. And you see significant reduction, which is exactly what we need to see to ensure economic stability going forward and continued prosperity. Under current policy, we also talk about the mandatory Social Security, Medicare. They will go insolvent in a decade, within the next decade, and Medicare will run out of money as soon as 2035 if we continue on the current trajectory. This budget doesn't specifically take action to address that solvency, doesn't make cuts, but does what we need to do. It reduces spending, it implements economic policies to grow our nation's GDP, and it doesn't raise taxes. And by the way, that's the only combination that's really going to get us out of this mess. We've got to have stronger economic growth, we've got to reduce spending, and we have to ensure that we protect the solvency of Medicare and Social Security. If we don't implement something along this line, we're not going to be able to do that. And this is a plan from the Republicans on this committee. I'm grateful to hear in previous discussions that both sides of the aisle understand the threat of a growing debt, and I hope that we can work together to ensure that we change the trajectory. But again, to avoid those automatic cuts in Social Security and Medicare, we're going to have to ensure that we implement more sound fiscal policies. So I'm really proud of the work that's been done by the chairman and this committee on this budget. I want to mention one quick thing, if I may, as well. This proposal creates a bipartisan debt commission, which is a top priority of mine. It would conduct a comprehensive review of the country's finances, educate the public, develop recommendations for achieving that long-term fiscal sustainability that we need. Our constituents expect us to represent them in Washington and be responsible stewards of their tax dollars. And I think a bipartisan congressional commission such as that outlined in this proposal would ensure that constituents who elected us can hold us accountable for how we spend their hard-earned taxpayer dollars. So, Mr. Chairman, again, thank you for your work on this, and I yield back.
Well, I thank the gentleman again for his leadership and certainly been the lead voice on addressing our long-term unfunded liabilities through a bipartisan debt commission. Thank you for your contributions.